Hi there, dear listeners. Sean Williams here. The Word Docs might be in lockdown, but they have new books out in the wild. I have two. Her Perilous Mansion, a novel about kids stuck in a house that might be haunted, and The View from the End of the World, a collection of short stories all about the end of the world.
And I'm Alex Vickery-Howe, and my new play is called Watchlist, about a virus that changes the world.
And I'm Amy Matthews, and my alter ego Tesla Sue has the conclusion to her 4-book Frontiers of the Heart series out now. It's called Bound for Glory, and it's a rollicking western.
Now, on with the episode.
Why don't you write when you don't need money, honey? That would certainly make a hit.
Welcome everybody to another episode of The Word Docs. I'm here with Amy and Alex. We're going a bit stir crazy. The coronavirus lockdown has continued to the point where we've run out of chocolate and we're considering eating our children. Well, I am anyway. How are you guys going?
I need more coffee, I think. I think there needs to be more coffee. But other than that, I'm good. I think I'm good.
I just had some dip. I'm pretty happy. My needs are very simple.
A pen and some paper and some dip, and you're sorted.
And I'm in heaven.
Well, that's good. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most popular topics that we as teachers have ever encountered, which is, well, that nice, simple subject of publishing. How to be published, what it's like to be published, how do you get published, what does it all mean? Who's going to start?
Yeah, what's the secret? That's the key, I think, is, and in fact, there's a book called The Secret, and I forgot who wrote it. Not the famous one that Oprah.
I was going to say,
different one. But really about how most early authors think there's some, and I don't think you ever get rid of this, that there's some secret everyone knows, and if you just learn the secret, you'll be published.
Well, let's not tell them the secret code that you whispered to me earlier.
Be careful, Alex, or the men in black outside your door will kick it in and take you away if you reveal all our secrets. Yes, you still see, and you see that in teaching as well. I mean, I'm always asked the question, so how many footnotes should I put in this essay?
I know, like that will be the reason that it gets an A or whatever.
No, if it's two footnotes, we were hoping for 3.
Oh, and people get obsessed with like Times New Roman, Arial, double spaced, 1.5 spaced. Oh my goodness, I've got one typo. But, people get so hung up on even, like I made a mistake on this one page, so they'll never publish me. It's just like, that's probably not the thing.
Have you ever submitted a book in Comic Sans MS?
Have you done this, Alex?
No, I've received essays in that font and kind of gone, well, this is whimsical.
Yeah.
It's like a clown wrote it.
Just if students are listening, the one thing I've never understood, and in fact, Patrick Allington one of our colleagues, Patrick Allington, who's also in creative writing at Flinders, he used to hand out a document to students saying, make sure you do these 5 things, right? And one would be like, number your page. But number 1 on the list is give your story a title.
Yes.
Your essay a title, and I'm always astonished that students don't give their work titles. I always thought people did, because I always did. And in fact,
probably only about half, I think.
When I did a film degree, I did a radio and society topic, and I wrote an essay which I think got a high distinction just because of the title, because it was based on, do you remember Dr. Feelgood, the sex radio person on Triple J?
Yes.
And I titled the essay, I'm sure your penis is just perfect. And I think that's probably why I got a good grade. So
if I got that, I don't know what I would do. I would write back, I'm sure it's not.
But I would swear about 90% of the creative work that I mark doesn't get a title, not until honours level.
Yeah, very few.
Yeah,
very few.
I sort of understand that though, particularly at first or second year stage, because they're still very much drafts, and I don't mind if students don't have titles for their work, because it's still early days and titles are hard. In fact, one of the students that I had for first year last year had this incredible superpower of being able to name things. So people would submit their work untitled, and when it came to his turn to workshop, at the end he'd always say, "Oh, now I've got a great title for your story," and everyone would agree, and it would be amazing.
See, I love titles.
So, titles are great fun when they come.
And I think I always get the title before I start. Like, it's key for me to get the title, whereas other people will just do working document number 1 or
the something or other project, or yeah.
The Alan Parsons Project. Oh, no, that's been used. It's tricky, isn't it? I mean, I totally understand new writers' uncertainty when it comes to the rules because...
I felt it. I will confess I felt it for a long time, like there was some secret that I could learn and it would all unlock.
Because it's such a complicated process and there's no set curriculum to learn how to do it. I mean, we teach it at the university. We do have
It's very
curricula,
opaque.
But it's extremely opaque and it just takes a long time to work out because I guess to a large degree it's different for every person. You've got to work out. I was going to say
it's like it's that life thing, isn't it, where you suddenly find yourself involved with something and you think, how did I actually get here? And it's actually really hard to then backtrack and go, what were the series of steps that led to this moment? And could I explain that to another person if I wanted to? And usually you can't. You just go, there was this serendipity, there was F-ups along the way, blah, blah, blah.
He still won't say the F-bomb, Amy. He won't.
We try to trick him into it. He's worried his Nana Joy's listening, I'm sure. Can I ask a question? Maybe what would be useful here would be to hear your publishing stories, like how you came to be first published.
Well, that's a good idea. Do you want to go first, Amy, seeing as you had that excellent idea?
You published before any of us. You should probably go first because you've had the most...
You're the publishing king.
You are like one of Australia's treasures, Sean.
What do you want, Amy? I've run out of chocolate and we're not even in the same room.
But you've probably published way more than us. So how did you start out?
Well, I can tell you how I started out, but only with the caveat that it was 30 years ago and things have changed a lot.
Times have changed.
Times have changed, but I do also suspect that in principle they haven't in some ways. So, I'd been writing most of my life and I dropped out of university. I was doing a Bachelor of Economics in order to become a writer. That was my 10-year plan. And I gave myself 10 years to sell a novel or else I have to go back to university to finish my economics degree. So that was kind of the background of my decision to become a serious writer with the intention of becoming a full-time writer. And I decided that I would write lots and lots of short stories to practice lots of different styles and to give myself a sense of completion because you need that boost to keep yourself going. You guys know this. Every writer knows this. It takes so long to finish anything, particularly novels. So I started writing all these different short stories. I ended up with a stack of about 25 of them sitting on my desk and I hadn't sent any of them out except to a small competition called a big competition called the Writers of the Future Contest, which runs out of America and it's for amateur science fiction and fantasy writers. So let's just park that for a second. And in the meantime, I'd been reading Australian science fiction magazines, and there was one particular author published in there called David Tansey that I particularly liked, and I wrote the magazine a letter. This is pre-internet. That's how old I am. I wrote the magazine a letter and said, hey, I really like David's stuff. Can you pass on the fact that I like it? And they did, and he wrote me a letter, and we ended up catching up for dinner in Canberra one night, and I said, I've got all these stories that I've finished. And he said, what have you done with them? And I said, nothing except for sending them to the competition. What do you think I should do with them? And he said, flood the market. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, send them out everywhere until they sell and see what happens. And what happened was that about 12 of them sold, which meant that the very next year, 12 stories came out with my name attached to them, and I won a prize in that contest. And suddenly everyone was going, who the hell is this Sean Williams guy? Where's he come from?
Isn't it such a nice feeling the first time you see your story in print? It's just the best feeling.
It was so exciting. It was in a small press fanzine called EOD, Esoteric of Order of Dagon magazine. Hat tip to Chris Masters, who was the first person to ever publish anything by me. And it sort of snowballed from there. So having exploded onto the scene, then when publishers were looking for new fantasy authors, they were asking booksellers, and a bookseller that I knew was one of them, and he rang me up straight away and said, look, I've just had the commissioning editor, Louise Thurtell from HarperCollins, asking who's new and hot, and I gave them your name. If you've got anything, send it on. I did. She bought it, and kind of the rest is sort of history. So I followed that old way of coming up through short stories, but also working bloody hard and following the advice of my peers. David's advice was really good advice because, of course, you've got to put your stories out there in order to sell them. It's so obvious, but I was afraid and needed validation.
Yeah, I think we all are afraid when we start out and need validation.
Absolutely.
Also, if you're a perfectionist, you look back at things and go, oh, I'm not going to send, this is where I'm at, I'm not going to send that out. It's not quite right. And eventually everyone around you goes, just effing do it, you know. I came very close that time.
And you know, one of those stories that I submitted to the competition, I remember this because it was absolutely galling. It came back to me, and this was back in the day when computer memory was really small. I had to print this in 2 separate files, and I'd effed up the page numbering, so it went from page 26 to 28, and one of the judges hand wrote on page 28, you sent in a story with a manuscript with a missing page. And I felt like such a noob. It was, and
what a dick too.
I know, absolutely.
That was a dick move, definitely.
It was a dick move, but I never did it again. So I learned my lesson.
I try not to do that when I mark things. I think it's really important. I mean, I do it because I can't help myself, but I think it's really important not to focus on, like, if someone's really strong, then I think picking on a page number is a dick move. I would probably do it in a joking way. Hey, you wrote something really brilliant. Here's your HD. By the way, 27 comes after 26. Like, I think that's okay. But I think to make that...
My favourite page was 26, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's okay to do that in a tongue-in-cheek way, but to actually seriously latch on to something like that is missing the point. Yeah. It's a very weird analogy, but just indulge me for a second. It's like when Grace Jones came here for the Adelaide Festival and people were complaining that she missed a word. I'm like, it's Grace effing Jones. She's brilliant. She's also drunk, which is part of her charm. And she missed a word. Who the hell cares? I just think if you're seeing that, you're missing what's actually going on here.
Being picky for picky's sake.
Well, I don't think I was the Grace Jones of Australian publishing in 1991, but and I'm still aspiring to be. But
so 1991, that was the year?
That would have been around then. 91 was when I had my first fiction published, and 92 was my really big year. So a friend of mine who was in small press publishing had not published anything by me for a while, and he talked about getting a T-shirt saying, I have not published Sean Williams, and in the belief that he was the only person who could honestly wear that. But then he did publish me, so bad luck. Russell
no T-shirt for him.
T-shirt.
So you guys, what's your publishing story? How did you get to be here?
A lot like the students. Like, I think I was very timid starting out, and I think I really didn't know what genre I was writing in, or what my audience was, or what publishing. I knew nothing about publishing. And I think I waited until I was a bit older. I've always written, but I think I waited till my mid-20s really to take it seriously. I think probably out of fear that this is the thing I'm good at, and if this doesn't work out, what does that say about me? So I think I waited a very long time. I was quite a shy person. Well, I think I'm a perfectionist, and I was very shy, and it just took me a long time to kind of get up the confidence. And what I did, I had a couple of degrees. Well, first of all, I thought I was going to go into film, so I did a film degree, and I was actually shortlisted for an internship at Lucasfilm one year, and then that didn't come off, and so I thought, well, I'll write a book. And then when I'd finished the book, I didn't know what to do with it, so I went back to Adelaide Uni, where I'd done my arts degree before the film degree, and met the wonderful Sue Hosking, who had taught me. She was head of English at the time, and I went in saying, look, I just don't know what to do with my life, and I've been thinking about coming back and doing honours. And she said, I don't know if you know, but we've started a creative writing program. Like, I think they'd only done a year or two of it at the time, and we've just launched a PhD in creative writing. Have you thought about doing honours or anything in creative writing? And I was like, oh my God, that never occurred to me that was even a thing. So I just went and did an honours year with, at the time it was Tom Shapcott, the famous Australian poet, and Eva...
The beautiful Tom Shapcott.
Yeah, and Eva Hornung, who's an amazing writer and human being. And they just gave me such confidence in that one year. Like, really lovely, supportive people. And so I kept going. And then through a PhD, I got published in honours. It was actually Eva. One of my short stories I handed in was like, you need to publish this. And she set it up and made it happen because I was too shy. That gave me so much confidence. So I came out of honours, I think, with 2 or 3 short stories published. And then still didn't know really where I fit in genre, because I'd done a literary studies degree and really had only thought in terms of literature, and wrote my novel End of the Night Girl, and then couldn't get it published, and kind of just went back into my hole. and then eventually won an unpublished manuscript award with that. That's how that got published. But it wasn't really until I found the romance community. I can't even remember. I think when I finished my PhD, I submitted my PhD 10 days before my second child was born.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I think my PhD thesis was on the ethics of fictionalizing the Holocaust, and the novel is a very dark novel, and that material was very intense. And so I think while I was on maternity leave, I was like, I just want to write something fun. So I wrote historical romance. I just thought, this will be fun, I'll do this. And I joined a local romance writing group and just was blown away by the knowledge that romance writers have of industry. Like, they are business people in a way that literary writers are not. So by going to 2 conferences, I suddenly, and at these conferences, all the publishers are there, all the agents are there. There are like New York Times bestsellers sitting next to you, and they are so generous with their knowledge. And I learnt more in a year about publishing than I had ever learnt. And then I lost my fear. I've never been scared since.
A tale of losing your fear.
Yeah.
I kind of go up and down, I think. So, I mean, my background, I thought I was going to be an actor. I don't know if I ever really, no, that's not really true. I don't think I ever really thought I was going to be an actor.
I just thought almost a Power Ranger, though.
I was almost a Power Ranger. I was almost, oh no, I'm not going to tell the other one because, no. Just every time I watch The Lion King, I get a little bit annoyed. Let's just leave it at that. Not the cartoon, but
he was almost in the musical, everyone. And I want you all to try and guess which character. And if you get it right on any of our social media, we will send you some chocolate.
Hyena number 3.
Hyena number 3. Ed, no. I think I just like being in drama classes, and I thought, well, that's what I'll do. That's what I'll do for a living. That's really easy. And
There's
then
so much money in that.
So much money. And then about
writing that second to it. I know.
It was probably my honours year. We had Ros Horan visiting she was the then artistic director of Griffin Theatre in Sydney, and we were doing a show about refugees. It was actually really interesting. We had a lot of personal stories of refugees that I'm not entirely sure how we had them or what black magic was behind all that, but we had some very interesting documents. And I was one of the actors workshopping this play and ended up just writing a lot of material for Ros. Just, you know, we would do an improv, and then I'd go, oh, I had a thought about that. I've written it up, and here we go. And I think she said to the then head of the drama school, I think Alex is a writer. He's having a lot of fun.
Is that like a compliment or an insult?
Yeah.
He's not an actor.
I think you better sit down for this. I think you might be a writer.
I think Amy is a carpenter. She should not write any more novels.
What's that old joke? For an actor, you make a great writer. You know?
Exactly. But I think it's also the way the training was, because there was around that time about 4 or 5 of us who took a similar path. Like Caleb Lewis was there, Eddie White, who subsequently started his own animation company and writes animated films. And I think it was because the way we were taught drama was through the writers. So we started going, oh, hang on, Shakespeare, Pinter, Ibsen. Oh, okay, these are the people that are being remembered from all of this. No one remembers
who acted.
Yeah, who cares who acted in it? And so there was a kind of weird natural progression from one to the other. And then...
I will say, I think there is such a close relationship between acting and writing, actually. Because I used to do theatre at school and then went into film, and I think they're also interrelated. Story making,
character creation for an actor and for a writer are very similar. I often do the same sorts of exercises with acting students that I would do with writing students. I would just physicalize them more if it was acting students. You know, if it was acting students, I go, all right, now we've created this character with a backstory, and we know what they had for breakfast, and we know who their sister is, and we know all of these things. Now you're going to go out to a supermarket and be that person. Whereas to a writer, you'd say, why don't you write a scene?
Yeah, exactly.
But for actors, it's lots of fun, because if you go out in character convincingly, no one knows any different, and you can get into some interesting situations.
But we can do it in our pajamas, so winning.
But we don't have to put pants on if we don't want to, which is great. But which
is why I'm only seeing these two from the neck up.
I'm wearing tracksuit pants. It's
I've
fine.
got
I don't
pants
know what
on
Sean's
at all.
doing.
Oh no,
Sean's a dark horse. You don't know what's going on over there. But I was going to say, the thing with with performance writing is it's so much more ephemeral to what you're describing. I mean, I have published plays that's happened, but there's also been a lot of shows I've been involved with that have no artifact, which is kind of frustrating. I mean, they've got reviews and there's a really bad video of them, but that never works. Or, I've written screenplays that have won awards, but there's no real forum really for publishing a screenplay. So part of what interests me is how to break out of that ephemeral bubble and go, oh, by the way, I do have a body of work. It just exists in a performance space. So I listen to this with some fascination because performance writing goes through your hands. It's a moment and then you go, okay, that's gone. So, like Once Upon a Midnight, I'm working on the novel of that very slowly. But that was a big, Japanese-Australian rock musical. But beyond the program and a couple of photos, I don't really have anything, and some news, quite a few news articles and stuff. But
I want a CD. Where's the CD with the soundtrack? I want to hear it.
It's a good point. I think we only ever had scratch tracks in rehearsal that I've got recorded. So, but
a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, because you don't kind of. This is why I think moving forward, I think documenting your process is really important because you do lose these things. So there's a kind of bittersweet nature to the kind of work I've been doing in that way because it is kind of like you had to be there. So that's, what's making me think in terms of making a transition, I think, or widening what you do.
So obviously Talking Publishing is several podcasts that we'll be doing this over. We'll pop in and discuss publishing here and there because there's so many aspects to it. But just what would be one thing you wish you could go back and tell your early self about publishing when you were starting out? Which early self? Which question?
Sean has been many people over the years.
He has actually.
There are a lot of Seans out there. A lot of Sean Williamses too who are writers.
Curse them.
What would I tell myself? I would tell myself that there's no hurry, but also not for everything. I would tell myself there's always a flip side. There's no hurry, but also don't take too long getting there. There's no right way. That's what I would go back and tell myself.
That's a really good one. I like Don't Hurry. I think that's a really good one because I think people feel like there's a time limit on it. And particularly because our culture has this whole narrative of the wonderkind, like you do it young and you'll be special. But actually we're in a long game writers. Like we can write forever and you don't hit your maturity for quite a long time. And I think Don't Hurry is really good. And what was the other one you said? There's no right way.
There's no right way. So I often think this, what would I go back and tell myself? And I always decide there's nothing I would go back and tell myself because I did it that way and it's worked really well, I mean, there were ups and downs along the way, but if I changed my method to avoid a down, I might create another one inadvertently and lose an up, That's how we see that you write fantasy and sci-fi, that kind of answer, Sean. The alternative reality answer. Schrodinger's answer. Say yes to everything. That's certainly what I would.
Oh, that's been one of my policies too. Say yes, even if it puts you under the pump, even if you're way out on a limb, just say yes and then work it out.
Oh, say yes to anything you actually want to do, but say no to everything you don't want to do, if that makes sense.
There's always a flip side. There's always a flip side.
I can't give a straight answer.
I think the advice that I would continue to give myself is the advice that I give other people, but I'm not very good at taking because I feel like I know so many talented people who are reluctant to put themselves out there, and it causes me deep frustration. And that's not just writers, that's actors. I know some extraordinarily talented musicians who do amazing work. I get quite frustrated going, but you're obviously brilliant, so go forth. And I'm very good at telling that to other people and don't necessarily believe it with me. So I tend to keep things in a drawer. And there are people now in my life going, do you want to take that out the drawer? do you want to let that into the world? Yeah. So that's the continual conversation with myself, I think. What about you?
Yeah. Well, I keep thinking about, like, my mother can't use the internet, right? Can't email, is terrified of it. And it's because she thinks she can break it. And I think
she can break the internet.
Yeah. She thinks if she presses delete, she might delete the internet or something. So I think what I would like to go back and tell myself is you're not going to break it. You're not going to break your career. You're not going to, just emailing a publisher and making a mistake will be okay. They're not going to hold it against you unless you're rude to them. It's going to be okay to send out work that they don't accept because they might accept one later, that you don't get one shot. I think when you start out, like a lot of our students, they think they get one shot at it, and if they fuck it up, see, I said it, Alex, I said fuck.
Oh my God, twice.
if they fuck it up, it's going to be
3 times.
okay. It's not like a publisher's going to go, well, that was your one chance, you're done. And in fact, you can restart your career every time it falters. I've had like so many restarts in my life, and it stops you being scared. I think you think, okay, well, I'll just pick myself back up. It's a bit like getting your heart broken, right?
Yes, yeah.
Like, hopefully you're not just going to fall in love once and when you get heartbroken become a nun.
And go, that was the end of that.
Thing.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain amount of resilience, don't you? Here we're coming back to psychological wellness, which we'll have to spend a whole episode on properly at some point. But some people do.
We should maybe get an expert in to talk with us about that too.
We should. Yes. I mean, I think the thing that you've got to remember is that it's never personal, because having been, when I did the work with...
Except when it is, right?
Except when it is. No, when I
did who noticed those page numbers.
Page 27.
Yeah.
But when I worked at Studio Canal and was reading all those scripts, I didn't know who was writing them. I had no idea. Like, I was just churning them through. And so it wasn't like I was going to remember, that came from Amy T. Matthews, therefore I shall never read another Amy T. Matthews script. It would never.
In fact, the opposite happens, I think. I don't think people tend to remember you negatively unless you've been rude, like I said. But I have had, when I was green and my work wasn't quite ready, they would say no, but they'd look out for me again. And I had an agent who finally reached out to me. In fact, more than one agent in my life has reached out to me because they've said no to me before, but then I'm like, actually, I would like to represent you.
Now's the time.
Yeah, so I think you just put yourself out there. Be brave.
That's right. We're touching on my 10.5 commandments of writing. Be brave is actually one of the commandments. Be brave.
Maybe we could do the commandments next episode.
Maybe.
It's a good,
we'll see.
Good link.
It'll just be me talking at you then. No, I can get you to critique.
We'll harass you. We could totally heckle him, can't we, Alex?
We will always heckle him, but we could also be like Moses, like receiving the commandments.
And that makes me the burning bush.
Not physically, though, because I don't want to catch anything.
No.
Especially from your burning bush.
Where were we? There was something I was going to say. Oh, that's right. The great myth of publishing is that it's all personal. I've lost track of the number of men in their 50s and 60s who say, well, I'm not being published because of the feminist cabal that runs publishing.
Yeah,
and they hate men.
I'm not being published because I don't know anyone in publishing and it's all a network.
Exactly. I don't know the right people. I'm not sleeping with the right people, etc., etc. It's nothing like that. It's all business.
Yeah, and I think that's reassuring too when you realise it's just business, and it's quite coldly business and impersonally business, and that's really empowering.
Yeah,
you just say, here, I've written this book, this is what it is. Is you interested in that kind of thing at the moment?
And if the answer's no, okay, I'll go somewhere else. That's
I'll move
fine.
on.
And hopefully they'll say yes. And it's the same with writing in general. I mean, I'm a big believer in the power of hard work, and I think that's what separates most successful writers from the people who aren't. The people who are successful are the ones who worked and never gave up. And that's easy, as you say, never giving up and working hard.
I think because you can control that bit.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
We're so wise, aren't we?
Oh, we are.
I'm looking at you both.
We should write some commandments.
Look at these prophets. I love how we started this with there's no secret, and we're ending this with
telling you the secret.
Next week there'll be some commandments that might be worth listening to.
10.5 secrets.
Yeah.
10 and a half, that's right. It's actually 11 and a half, but 10 and a half is catchier. and in fact, it might be 13 and a half now. So, because every time I talk about it in public, people go, oh, have you thought about this? And I go, oh, yeah, all right. That's a good one.
Just add that one to the list.
That's right. I'm going to steal that and put it in there and not give you credit. No, never do that. Always give credit.
I like the idea that that's how God invented the 10 commandments, that he originally only had 7. And then he went, oh, stealing. Yeah, no, stealing's bad. Okay, we'll add that.
We know he did it twice.
The stealing commandment.
He stole the stealing commandment.
God actually has created the commandments twice, but they're different commandments.
The revised edition, the second edition.
You can see the two lists in the Old Testament, and they're different. It's great.
So it's a bit like those crappy Star Wars films where they added the new scenes like that.
Oh,
yeah, this is a bit like that.
The original edition and then the remastered ones.
That's right.
You've got Greedo shooting first in one.
We got through. We got all this way without mentioning Star Wars.
That's why I had to bring it up.
It's in our contract.
He brought God up.
My Lucasfilm chip is twitching in the back of my neck. We haven't managed to plug Star Wars just
Once
yet.
they've got you, they've got you forever.
The secret is you need a Lucasfilm chip.
That's right.
Everything unlocked.
You almost had it, Amy. I'm sorry, we're not technologically compatible. So, any closing thoughts? We're coming up to the end of our very first Publishing 101 episode. Any optimistic or constructive thoughts we'd like to share with our beautiful listeners?
Probably that we believe in you and just don't be scared.
We give you permission to send your stuff out in the world.
And don't forget that if you can guess which character Alex almost was in The Lion King, I will send you chocolate.
Do you mean that I haven't got it right? It's not hyena number 3.
No, you haven't got it right yet.
Oh, I can't believe you haven't told me already. Oh, well, as soon as this episode, as soon as I hit stop on record.
I have so many horrible near-miss stories in my life, but that's just one of many.
But luckily for us, that means he's a writer now.
One of our colleagues too. One of the excellent Word docs from Flinders. It's fantastic. We must get the 4th in one day. We often talk about who we're going to interview. We must get Lisa in and have a chat.
We were going to do it, and then some virus came along and we're all locked down.
Oh, well,
someone
we'll
ate it wasn't a bat, was it? Someone ate a
cow.
Pangolin.
Pangolin?
It was originally a bat, though. I think it comes from a bat originally. We'll know. You guys will know by now.
Did the pangolin eat the bat?
I know an old lady
he
who
went up a
swallowed
hill
a
with
bat.
Moses. Yeah, we've gone a bit loose now, so I think we should probably end this episode.
We're clearly going crazy. Happy writing, everybody. Happy publishing. I say that to annoy Alex, of course, because we know
He doesn't like happy writing. Happy writing, Alex.
Alex, your job is to give us a new slogan.
May your publishing be merry.
Who could disagree with that?
See ya.
See ya.
Why don't you write when you don't need money? All your notes sound alike too much. All of them starts with I love you, honey, but they end with the same old touch. Just for a change, send a nice loving letter and cut out that please remit. Why don't you write when you don't need money, honey? That would certainly make a hit.
That's great. I'm starting to go a bit mad, but that's a good thing.
I think it's
I
kind
think
of fun.
that madness works for us sometimes.